In the winter of 1999, if you walked into a luxury jeweler on Bond Street or Fifth Avenue, you would see them, flawless, cold, and eternal. But if you could zoom into the molecular structure of those stones, you wouldn't see carbon. You'd see a signature written in the blood of 50,000 people. This is the forensic autopsy of the Sierra Leone Blood Diamond conflict, a crime that didn't just happen in a jungle, but in the boardrooms of Antwerp and the high society dinner parties of Europe. To understand the depth of this horror, you have to look at Ibrahim. He's 10 years old, standing in a muddy trench in the Kono district, his skin caked in yellow clay. Behind him stands a man in a blonde wig and a stolen wedding dress, holding a rusted AK-47. This man is high on brown, a lethal cocktail of cocaine and gunpowder, rubbed directly into a razor cut on his temple. The man asks Ibrahim a question that has become the terrifying catchphrase of this war. If Ibrahim chooses long, the rebel hacks off his hand at the wrist. If he chooses short, the machete takes the arm at the elbow. This was the calculated psychological branding of the Revolutionary United Front, the RUF. They didn't want voters. They wanted a nation of ghosts who couldn't hold a pen or a shovel. The origin of this nightmare traces back to 1987 in a secret training camp in Libya called Mataba. Two men sat across from each other. Foday Sankoh, a former wedding photographer with a messiah complex, and Charles Taylor, a Liberian warlord with a hunger for power. They were joined by other shadowy figures like Blaise Compaoré of Burkina Faso, creating a regional axis of instability. They made a devil's bargain. Taylor would provide the weapons and military logistics through the ports of Monrovia, and Sankoh would provide the currency, diamonds. On March 23, 1991, the RUF crossed the border into Sierra Leone at Bomaru, initiating a conflict that was never about ideology, but about the devil's ice. The RUF's most effective weapon wasn't the mortar. It was the child soldier. They would invade a village, kidnap every child, and force them to commit an atrocity against their own family, often killing their own parents to ensure they could never go home. If you have no family, the RUF is your family, they were told. These children were then given cocaine cuts on their temples for an instant aggressive high before being sent to guard the diamond pits. If a slave miner tried to hide a diamond by swallowing it, these children were ordered to perform a caesarean on the living victim to retrieve the stone. The ritual of violence was so deep that rebels would place bets on the sex of an unborn baby before cutting the mother open, just to settle the wager. The commanders of this chaos were a rogues gallery of monsters. There was Sam Mosquito Bokari, the RUF's tactical mastermind and former disco dancer, known for his tactical buzzing attacks that left villages in ruins. There was Issa Sese, who took command when things fell apart, and Alex Tamba Brima, known as Hulit, who led the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council splinter group. These men didn't operate in a vacuum. While the carnage unfolded in the jungle, a different kind of crime was happening in the financial centers of the West. During the mid-90s, the world's diamond hub in Antwerp, Belgium, began noticing a mathematical impossibility. The tiny nation of Liberia was exporting millions of carats of diamonds. Yet Liberia has almost no diamond mines. Investigators like Ian Smiley and organizations like Global Witness realized that the country's official export manifests were a lie. The route was a well-oiled machine. RUF rebels carried parcels of rough stones across the porous border into Liberia, where Charles Taylor's men, including his ruthless small boys units and the Special Operations Division, exchanged them for crates of Eastern European ammunition. This was often brokered by the notorious Merchant of Death, Victor Boot. Boot used a fleet of Soviet-era Antonov cargo planes, flying into jungle airstrips under the cover of darkness. These shipments arrived at the Roberts International Airport, or the Port of Buchanan, disguised as food aid or mining equipment. Taylor would then launder the stones, issuing them fake Liberian certificates of origin. From Monrovia, the stones flew to Europe and Dubai. By the time a diamond reached a retail counter in New York, 3 layers of middlemen had washed the blood off. At the peak of the war, an estimated 15% of the world's diamonds were conflict gems. Every purchase was a silent donation to a warlord's arsenal. The logistics were handled by men like Leonid Minin, a Ukrainian arms dealer who was later arrested with a suitcase full of diamonds and documents linking him to Taylor's inner circle. The violence reached its zenith on January 6, 1999, with Operation No Living Thing. The RUF and the West Side Boys, a gang of rebels who wore wigs, women's dresses, and Santa hats to terrify their victims. Invasion of Freetown. They entered the city disguised as civilians, carrying babies that were actually bundles of AK-47s wrapped in blankets. They burned the city hall, hospitals, and schools, killing 7,000 people in 3 weeks. They used human shields, forcing women to walk in front of their tanks so peacekeepers couldn't fire. The air was thick with the smell of burning tires and human flesh. The government, paralyzed, turned to executive outcomes. A private South African mercenary firm led by Eben Barlow. For $35 million and a slice of the mines, these mercenaries did what the UN couldn't, clearing the diamond fields in weeks with Mi-24 Hind gunships and BMP-2 infantry vehicles. They utilized advanced night vision and thermal imaging, tools the rebels had never seen, making the RUF believe they were being hunted by ghosts. But the international community, outraged by the use of mercenaries, the day they left, the RUF returned. The cycle of blood restarted. But the real military drama occurred in August 2000 during Operation Barras. The West Side Boys had kidnapped 11 British soldiers and a Sierra Leonean officer. Holding them in the jungle fortress of Beribana, the rebels thought they were untouchable. They were high, unpredictable, and armed with heavy machine guns. On September 10th, the British SAS and the Parachute Regiment launched a simultaneous assault. Chinook helicopters roared over the jungle canopy at treetop level, while SAS teams fast-roped directly into the rebel camp. The battle was short and brutal. The West Side Boys were decimated, their leader, Foday Calais was captured and the hostages were rescued. It was a turning point that broke the morale of the rebel factions, but the scars on the land were far from healed. The investigation into these crimes eventually led to the Special Court for Sierra Leone. Witnesses described the Operation Pay Yourself checkpoints, where civilians were stripped of everything they owned. If they had nothing, they lost their limbs instead. Investigators found mass graves where the remains of miners were piled like discarded waste. Justice would not arrive until the trial of Charles Taylor at The Hague. In a surreal twist, supermodel Naomi Campbell was called to testify. She admitted that after a dinner party in 1997 hosted by Nelson Mandela, she was given a pouch of dirty-looking stones by men she believed were sent by Taylor. It was the ultimate receipt for the prosecution, linking Taylor directly to the possession of blood diamonds. On May 30th, 2012, Taylor was sentenced to 50 years in prison. The first head of state since World War II to be convicted of war crimes. Foday Sankoh, however, died of a stroke while awaiting trial, escaping the judgment of the people he mutilated. Other names like Johnny Paul Koroma vanished into the shadows, with rumors suggesting he was executed in Liberia to keep him from talking. The aftermath left a nation physically and psychologically shattered. In the years following the war, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission began the agonizing process of documenting the horrors. They found that over 2,000 people had been subjected to amputations, but tens of thousands more bore the invisible scars of sexual violence and forced labor. The diamond curse had turned one of the most resource-rich areas on the planet into a graveyard of human potential. To this day, forensic experts look at Type 2A diamonds, the purest diamonds in the world, with a mix of awe and dread. These stones are chemically pure, lacking nitrogen, which gives them a clarity that makes them look like water. But that clarity is a lie. As of today, December 21st, 2025, the crime has merely evolved. The machetes have been replaced by legal maneuvers and economic exploitation. In May 2025, a massive labor uprising shook the Kono district. Koidu Limited, owned by BSG Resources, faced a total shutdown as workers protested wages that were being paid in a devalued currency while the company's profits soared. The inflation in Sierra Leone has reached staggering heights, meaning a miner's daily wage of 15,000 leones, which used to be worth something, is now barely enough for a single meal. While a 1-carat Type 2A diamond can retail for over $10,000, the miner who found it might see only 7 cents in actual profit after paying off his debts. Over 120,000 artisanal miners still work in stagnant, mosquito-infested pits. These pits are breeding grounds for malaria and typhoid, yet the miners have no health insurance, no safety gear, and no legal protection. They are trapped in debt bondage, a system where supporters, local middlemen, provide the sifting pans and the rice to eat. But in exchange, they claim the right to buy any find at 20% of its market value. If a miner refuses, they are blacklisted, left to starve. The 709-carat Peace Diamond found in 2017 by Pastor Emmanuel Momo was supposed to change this. Sold for $6.5 million, the government promised it would be a catalyst for development. But walk through the villages of Kono today, in late 2025, and you will see the same dirt roads and the same lack of electricity. The wealth of the earth continues to flow out, leaving nothing but holes in the ground and holes in the lives of the people. The psychological reports from groups like Médecins Sans Frontières reveal that even decades later, 90% of survivors suffer from recurrent nightmares. The phantom limb phenomenon is common among the amputees, who feel the itch of fingers that were hacked off 30 years ago. The war has moved from the streets into the DNA of an entire generation. In Sierra Leone, they don't call them precious stones. They call them the devil's ice. And the world is still shivering from its touch. Every sparkle in a display case carries the ghost of a choice: short sleeve or long sleeve. The tragedy of the Blood Diamond isn't just that it funded a war. It's that it stole the very concept of a future from a nation that sits on top of billions in wealth, while its children sift through the dirt for 7 cents a day. The crime didn't end with the peace treaty. It just became harder to see. This has been Echoes of the Unsolved 001. We peel back the layers of history's most haunting crimes to find the truth buried in the dirt. If this story chilled you, if it made you look at that ring on your finger differently, then you need to be here for what comes next. Subscribe to Echoes of the Unsolved 001 right now so you never miss a drop. We are diving deep into the shadows, and our next investigation takes us across the border into the heart of Nigerian journalism and political intrigue. On October 19, 1986, a package was delivered to the home of one of Nigeria's most fearless journalists. It was a parcel bomb, the first of its kind in the nation's history. We will be uncovering the cold-blooded murder of Dele Giwa. Who sent the package? Why was the investigation silenced? And what did Giwa know about the highest levels of the Nigerian government that made him a target for a high-tech execution? The trail leads through military barracks, intelligence offices, and the dark corridors of power in Lagos. But before we go, I want to hear from you. Now that you've seen how the diamond trade works from the inside, how conflict-free certificates ignore the economic slavery of 2025, do you think it's time for a total boycott of natural diamonds? Or can the industry be saved by technology like blockchain tracking? Some say lab-grown diamonds are the only ethical choice, while others argue that a boycott would only destroy the remaining livelihoods of the miners in Sierra Leone. What is your take? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one, and your insights help drive our next investigation. Until next time, keep your eyes open. The truth is usually hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to look.